Hey everyone, joining me today are Joe Gleinser, co-founder and CEO of Trustgrid, and Steven Stites, co-founder and CTO of Trustgrid. Trustgrid provides network infrastructure for fintech, healthcare, and energy companies. Today we're going to talk about how AI is changing the way that those networks are built, managed, and maintained, what self-healing and self-managed networks mean, what they actually look like in production, and what changes for companies when they partner with Trustgrid. Let's go ahead and get started. Can you tell me a little bit about what Trustgrid does and the challenges that you solve?
So we describe Trustgrid as a AI-enabled networking as a service provider that enables cloud providers to connect to on-premise data sets, usually behind firewalls such as core banking systems, EMR, EHR systems, medical devices, and any other on-prem data set. The core challenge that we really help our customers with is that deploying these networks historically has been a tremendous amount of infrastructure investment, management, internal team time, and we can outsource all of that through a series of proprietary technology and services.
Given the acceleration of AI, what are the new opportunities that you see emerging in the networking space, and maybe how has that evolved over the last year?
The story for networking for the last decade has been about automation, to move away from manual configurations and lengthy support cycles into more automated environments. And AI in the networking space is really just a continuation of that trend. More automation, less manual effort, a more cloud-like experience in this hybrid cloud environment between the cloud and the edge.
And just I'd add on to that, the ability to do incident response in a more like analyze it in right when the problem is happening, get to a root cause much faster than the potentially minutes or hours that it might take typically.
Okay, have you had like any big aha moment over the last year when it comes to AI in the networking space?
We've had a lot of moments where it's a problem that pops up that is taking a customer quite a while to figure out what the issue was. In particular, I think I can remember an issue where there was a latency issue that a customer was experiencing. It wasn't clear immediately whether this was an internet problem, an application problem, like a cloud provider problem. And it literally took along the lines of 2 days to come to the realization of what the root cause was.
Yeah.
And I definitely remember thinking at that point, some ability to have something autonomously go dig down and do these same actions that these network folks were doing to find the problem would be invaluable for the customer in this situation where SLAs are typically involved and they're kind of really up against the wire to figure this out.
Joe, the average viewer of this may not know who Trustgrid is or what they do. How do you talk to the uninformed about what Trustgrid does and the challenges y'all solve?
Yeah, it's a complex problem we solve. It's hard to encapsulate. You can call us an AI-enabled networking as a service provider, which is technically accurate and doesn't mean a whole lot to anybody. But really the technical problem we solve is connecting cloud-based applications to on-prem data sets. So cloud application providers hosted in Amazon or Azure, they're going to act as a core banking system to integrate data, Austin, Texas, San Diego, California, and they have to have a persistent, highly secure, highly available connection between the two. We provide all that connectivity from the cloud down to the edge and manage that entire environment like it's a cloud service.
Okay, so isn't this what VPNs had done before?
Yeah, we replace a lot of legacy VPN infrastructure from all the big networking providers.
Given the acceleration of AI, what are the new opportunities you see emerging in the networking space, and how is that different than maybe even a year ago?
We came back from the holiday break, I think like most software companies, thinking that AI was a lot of hype cycle and that it was going to be a valuable tool for us, but not as impactful as the hype would have let you believe. That all ended, I think, in mid-January. The new cloud release really illustrated to us the significant advancements that we can make in our software development life cycle, but also in the solutions we deliver to customers. And so the first real eye-opening piece for me came in early customer conversations where the need to integrate our customers' AI agents with our AI capabilities, to integrate our customers' AI agents into our agents, to really provide a cohesive layer of management tooling between the two sets. Something not really possible before these new models and this new evolution.
This is very recent, right? So you said January. We're recording this, end of April. What was like a big aha moment that you've had over the last 6 months?
In January, whenever basically AI proved that it could code as well as your best like software engineers.
Yeah.
At that point, I think is what a lot of people realized. That was only going to get better as time went on, right? So I think from a like engineering capacity standpoint, that's one angle you look at it. Like, okay, you're capable of writing a lot more software. And then how do you translate that into like business outcomes? It's kind of, I think, what a lot of people are wrestling with. But almost more interesting is the operational efficiencies that are near term in the networking space, at least because incident response is such a hairy, kind of tricky deal for a lot of our customers, especially when the internet's involved and you have like hundreds or thousands of sites involved in this, right? And digging down into that root cause can take minutes, hours, sometimes days. And having the ability for an agent to go and do that analysis, get it, done within minutes, and then have a potential root cause there that they can immediately put their finger on is very, very valuable.
I want to talk a little bit about this concept of self-healing networks. I hear you guys using that term. What does it actually look like when a network is healing itself?
There's, I think, a layer of incident response that's autonomous there, as well as some level of like predictive analytics, what you might say. And typically that's noticing that there is or will be a problem on, say, some internet path, or there's degradation on a certain path, and being able to reroute traffic is probably a pretty common example. In addition, maybe restarting devices could even be part of that too, right? If this device is in a bad state, automatically restarting it. Things like that are typically what you would refer to as a self-healing network these days. I think there's maybe an on-looking path to where you think the network just manages all that themselves. But for now, I think it's primarily kind of a reporting and have a human in the loop to go and, authorize the things that it's wanting to do. Yeah.
And our customers bring a different perspective on the business side to that too. What value is that providing for them? For our customers, there's still quite a bit of tier one troubleshooting of the network. That's a task that no one wants to do. Yeah. Right? That's just the resources could be better purposed to a million different tasks, and yet it's an absolutely essential component of operating a cloud infrastructure that extends on premise. And so we're looking at freeing up those resources to go focus on the stuff they really want to be working on, deliver this more cloud-like experience where the system is just running and they can focus on strategic improvement for their customers.
Okay.
You're not the only company that I see talking about self-healing networks. Where do you think the gap is between the marketing of this technology and the reality of where it sits today?
I think a lot of the marketing might lend itself to thinking this is a fully autonomous self-healing thing that just kind of, it's all happening behind the scenes. The reality is it's probably a narrower use case at the moment, as far as what are the use cases that it actually handles, and how much intervention is required there. And that's a gap that's going to shrink, obviously, as AI is playing more of a role there. Yeah. I think the end goal is to have it all happening behind the scenes without humans necessarily having to be involved at all. Might take some time to get there, though.
What are the risks of having that be fully autonomous?
Well, the risks are, as you would imagine, having AI run anything for you. How much do you trust it? And what is the risk kind of surface there if it decides to do something incorrectly? For our customers, the risk is significant because they have SLAs involved with these site connections that are going to translate into real money at the bottom line.
But much like with self-driving cars, right, the human operators today aren't perfect. And the standard of excellence for us is going to be very high, but the value really gets delivered when you're just surpassing what your tier one support guy can do with this network at 2:00 in the morning when the alert goes off.
Yep.
And so that part is very achievable right now.
Yep.
You said that you focus on fintech connectivity, right? So describe a little bit about how fintechs use you. What does that scenario look like?
Yeah, I mean, broadly, the common theme among all of our customers is there's going to be some sort of legacy on-premise data set that you can't move to the cloud. Mm-hmm. And in the financial services space, especially in community banking, you have thousands and thousands of core banking systems that have been in production for decades. that is not an easy lift and shift into a cloud model. In fact, but the market in general hardly ever changes their core provider. They hardly ever go through a major migration. These things are set in stone. You also find that in the other industries that we service. And so you have a banking application that if you check your account balance online, or you're trying to check your last 10 transactions, did I get paid today? That data needs to be very current, real-time data. You don't want to have a report that data is unavailable. You'd like to know right now. And then the interaction is both a read and write level of communication to it. You may want to transfer money, you want to pay bills, you want to interact with your account wherever you're at in real time. And so Trustgrid facilitates that by building this real-time connectivity layer between the cloud and these on-prem data sets.
Okay, I imagine that the way that they have been doing that has been more of a manual process, maybe using the VPNs that we talked about earlier. At what point does the way that they have been doing it break and there is a need for something like Trustgrid?
We talk to companies of all sizes, from dozens to thousands of connections, and the story is pretty consistent, right? You can do anything 10 times or 20 times and find a way just to cobble this together, and it's going to work pretty good. We can help out companies that size, but we really shine when you get up into the dozens, hundreds, and thousands of connections, when the management automation tooling that we bring into play, including now the AI stuff, really makes a much bigger impact. So these enterprise scale deployments really break down at the management level. A lot of still manual tooling is used today. We solve those fundamental challenges.
And how is AI helping with that self-management of the network?
The ability for the networking team to really interface at a kind of human language or a natural language level, rather than having to learn the portal, poking around in the portal, becoming familiar with, which we found is not necessarily something a lot of users want to do. And the ability to have an AI enablement layer where they kind of use these new AI tools, which everyone may have their own different flavor that they want to use, to go and interface with it at a much more comfortable level without potentially a level of expertise into this kind of portal knowledge, which takes some getting used to.
How does that change the calculus with onboarding new customers and then, I guess, basically democratizing access to the tools within those groups?
Really lowers the bar as far as who is able to get in there and actually get useful information from it. I think you still need to have some level of networking knowledge to go and configure these systems.
Yeah.
But the ability to go in and ask general questions as far as like, is this site having an issue, or are there any latency issues happening right now? Things like that, which are useful business things to know. It just takes someone knowing how to ask the right question rather than knowing deep technical knowledge with how to figure that out.
And you look at our portal users are not just technical. Our customer success teams log into Trustgrid, account management teams, onboarding teams. And I've got the feedback we've gotten is it's a pretty intimidating experience. Like any massive network platform, you're going to have a lot of stuff in there, and 90% of it that we offer doesn't apply to these guys at all. But they're a substantial part of our users. The ability to get these users to communicate with this system and get the data they want out of it. Did we have an SLA violation? Were we up or down during this time? What's the status of a deployment that we're managing? All those things come out of the same tool set as well. And so I think democratization is a great way to think about it. Just more users in the system, getting more data more quickly.
What do you think is like the hardest thing to get right when you're automating network management across dozens of different banking organizations and cores?
Our customers, the sites that they manage, are all kind of managed by different IT teams with potentially different networking topologies, different setups of how they have those local networks. So there's not what you might call like a easy cookie cutter template that you can just easily apply across the board there. We see AI as actually being something that makes it a little easier to say generate a template for a specific site, given, hey, here's a description of what the site uses as far as routing and those kind of things, and have it just automatically generate the right configuration for that site and deploy it, is a real interesting use case for us.
The niche that we've chosen is this inter-organization connectivity. We have an application provider on one side, their customer or partner or vendor on the other side. And so we have a lot of bosses at the end of the day. A lot of people get a vote on how this configuration is going to go. The ability to just address more of their concerns in real time, and whether that means just producing the security compliance documents that they need, the certificate of insurance, all the sort of routine maintenance stuff, but also getting a basic question answered through the Trustgrid LLM interface that we have. Just being able to take care of some of those problems more quickly really is going to differentiate us in the future from a more legacy networking style.
Can you walk us through a specific fintech client story, what their connectivity maybe looked like before and then after they had adopted Trustgrid?
We brought on a payments provider last year. They connect directly to core banks all across the country. They had a very traditional legacy networking provider doing IPsec VPN tunnels. And for this provider especially, they were burdened by the ongoing management hassles of running that network, whether it was ordering equipment, deploying equipment, patching, updating, figuring out what went wrong. And they're a software company. They don't, by rule, employ a lot of networking guys out there. And so they were looking for a partner to come in and take that burden off their plate. They wanted to speed up deployments. That was a big deal for them. They wanted to make sure that our compliance and all of our security and patching, that we're able to automate that piece of them, keep them compliant all the time. But then just shift the burden from front of mind for them to our responsibility. And so they come on, like many do, they come on a few at a time to start with. Everybody's learning each other during that process. And there's some enhancements that we do along the way with them. The comfort level builds, and then sort of the tidal wave breaks. And so, they went from installing a handful over the first 3 months to more than a dozen per month for the last 18 months or so. And now we've been able to penetrate most of their installed base. Most of their customers are running this. And so here we sit 18 months into a relationship that's worked out great. They don't think about the network anymore. They don't worry about how to make sure that the tunnels are secure or compliant. There's not audits that are being failed in their customer environment. So that burden just moves across the table, and they go back to focusing on payments.
I'm not asking you to commit to a roadmap obligation or anything, but how might those customers' interactions with Trustgrid look different 12 months from now, 24 months from now, given the advancements of AI?
I think the real fundamental change in the business, and I'll let you talk about the more technical pieces, but the kind of the model, I think, of SaaS delivery is evolving very quickly. It's going to affect us as well. Is that Trustgrid spent a bunch of money and time to build the product. We've evolved it. Our customers have paid subscription fees, and everybody's been happy with that. But I think there's additional expectations on a provider like us to deliver more features more quickly, be able to respond to customer requests, anticipate need a bit better. Backlogs that have customer requests that sit in them for months for the next big product release. It's just not going to fly anymore. And so we're really starting to think of ourselves as more of a consulting type customer that delivers subscription software, and really rethink the nature of the relationship between our customer and our team to be far more responsive to a request, to help more, to get further in the guts and find places we can help out.
Trustgrid obviously deals with banks, highly regulated entities. Managing those networks, I imagine, deals with a bunch of regulation. How does Trustgrid sort of handle SOC 2 compliance and other banking regulation compliance within your networks?
AI is an interesting challenge to that. Those compliance standards are going to run years behind what the market is doing, especially in a space like ours with a lot of innovation in it. And the problem for us isn't so serious because of the segmentation that we do, right? We're not in the middle of any of those payment transactions or any of those bill payments or any of those account queries. That's an isolated data plane for us. And so our controls really are around the segmentation there, but then also the handling of the metadata that creates, the management tool sets, all of those pieces. And so right now, the framework that we have today extends very well to protect the same systems that we've been audited on for years. But I am curious to see how those SOC 2 framework or the new standards that will come out adopt to AI. There's certainly some gaps in there that need to be addressed. I think there's going to be a lot of uncertainty in when vendors are exchanging an agent-to-agent type communication. What controls exist around there? How are those audited? How are those logged and monitored? Do we really trust these two agents just to have a conversation and fix a problem or create a problem?
If a networking engineer came to you and said, "What should I be learning right now to stay relevant?" what would you tell them, Steven?
Well, I think first of all, I think those core networking skills are pretty important. You still need to know not only how to like use these AI tools, but how to know when they're doing something wrong or something that doesn't make sense. And a lot of that you're just not going to be able to tell unless you have a solid core foundation there.
Yeah.
I think understanding how this new AI interfacing with these kind of vendors is going to work, including, us and I'm sure the other vendors as well, with their MCP servers, what kind of tools there are and how you use them, all that's going to be super useful. I also think, and Trustgrid has discussed internally as well, they have the capability now to write their own tools. And our networking team actually is writing some pretty interesting tools in the realm of like testing, very difficult to test environments, and simulating those kind of things to improve the quality of the product. So I think that kind of AI coding is also a very useful skill for them and many other technical folks that aren't traditionally coders.
Yeah, I think that it's never been a better time to be very experienced in any domain, networking being one of them. But you have to be playing with the tools. You've got to understand how all of these things function. If you can apply both your domain expertise with knowledge of the tools, you're going to be set up for however these things may evolve.
Right. I mean, if you take the time to learn the tools and really honestly try to use them, you will increase your production of whatever you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And your domain knowledge is really going to be your depth of domain knowledge is really going to be what determines how useful what you're going to build is going to be.
How should CTOs and engineering leaders think about investing in their team's networking skills as AI essentially starts taking on more of the workload?
The LLMs are getting pretty good at understanding the networking stuff themselves. They've been trained on a ton of it. I've been impressed. Like, give it a traffic capture file, and it's pretty good at figuring out what's going on there. Having the right people with that core foundation of networking knowledge to be able to kind of both advise the AI and kind of supervise it is pretty important.
Yeah.
Whenever I look at the resources, kind of from an engineering standpoint to the networking standpoint, there's bleed over there. I've talked to networking teams now that are writing, like I said, a bunch of AI tools, both for visibility, testing various things. And kind of as a CTO, how to focus that into something that has the right blend for like the business outcomes you're looking at. Because it's a lot of distractions, honestly, a lot of the time. Because now a lot of things are capable that weren't capable before. And kind of everyone's interested in doing something with it.
Yeah.
And which is good, but how do you translate that into higher revenue or lower operational costs? Is kind of the trick, and I think that's what pretty much everyone's trying to figure out right now.
The distraction piece, I think, is one we've lived firsthand the last few months. A lot of time goes into the learning, a lot of time goes into experiments. Some of those were successful, some of them weren't. And I think that's probably an understated challenge at the stage that we're at right now. Things are changing very quickly. We don't know when the new model comes out, what its capabilities really are. Even just the wave of third-party tools to enhance everything that we do. We spent a lot of time noodling on stuff that I think we didn't spend in previous years. We were more probably directly productive without building as much. And so it's almost more wasted effort, but still more productive. And I expect over the next several months, that's going to settle down somewhat. We're going to know, what we don't know, and be able to leverage these tools to really, with 5x, 10x that productivity level.
Yeah. And I think the only thing you can easily predict at this point is that those gains in the ability of the AI infrastructure and LLMs and stuff is going to continue only to get better and better and better.
Yeah.
And how do you see that playing out as far as the investments you're making in your teams is something you should try to forecast probably.
Yeah. Do either one of you have any sort of contrarian takes? I know that, all we read about these days is everyone's, opinion that AI is going to take over the world, that it's going to put everybody out of a job. Like, where do you guys fall on the spectrum of those discussions?
We've gotten a lot wrong in the last year, and that's been a humbling experience. To this stage in our careers, we've seen, I don't know how many hype cycles, dozens. How many actually impacted what we do on a daily basis? Maybe you can count them on one hand for sure. So much wasted time and effort. And so I was real careful with this one. And I think we kind of shared, you were a bit ahead, starting to develop these new tools for Trustgrid the old-fashioned way, manually, you might say. when I look at the world in general right now, I have a really hard time staking a claim to knowing a whole lot about what the future holds.
Yeah.
I would have thought, based on the initial results we got, January, February, I was all in on white collar employment is done for. We might be done for. Do we need developers? And then the reality sets in that, okay, this technology is not nearly as evolved as it might seem at first glance. Yeah. There's still a lot of deficiencies in it. You need a lot of humans that are skilled with it to produce good results. Garbage in, garbage out is still a thing with AI. And so I don't have a lot of really hard opinions about where we're going, but it's going to be an exciting ride.
Yeah. I mean, I think you have very, very smart people and experts in the AI space with very differing opinions on kind of call it the outlook over the next decade or future looking, what it means for the economy, what it means for jobs, what it means for the tech space. I think what you can count on is jobs are going to change. People are not going to produce, whether it's code or other content, the same way as they did before. And if you are ignoring AI and AI tools, you're doing so at your own peril, because that is without a doubt going to be kind of a core competency for a lot of jobs, looking forward.
Yeah, I would say even the folks that I see who are closest to AI won't really make predictions about what's going to happen. All they can really say is exactly what you're saying, is just learn the tools, because we just know everything is going to change. We don't know how it's going to end up, but those who know the tools will have a seat at the table for whatever ends up.
Yes. I mean, there's doomsday scenarios and there's utopia scenarios, probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
But one thing's for sure, none of us know.
Do you think that companies like Trustgrid are better positioned to take advantage of this AI wave, or the large, super large names who have been doing this for 40 years, who obviously have vast resources and engineering teams? They've historically moved slower than smaller companies. What do you think? I mean, there's obviously pros and cons to both, but as AI is just moving so quickly, which do you think are better positioned to take advantage of this?
My opinion is that a small, lean company like us is in a much better position.
Yeah.
Even internally to us, as this has kind of exploded, like I said, there's a lot of distraction, a lot of kind of ideas blooming everywhere. And it's hard to focus on like the business outcomes, right? That's not necessarily top of mind for everyone going through this kind of journey. Yeah. And for a company like us, it's already quite lean just because of the nature of how we were built. That's an infinitely easier process than a company that's got thousands of teams across different departments trying to come up with some cohesive kind of centralized strategy how to focus this stuff. And something that's ultimately going to be good for the business. Yeah.
I will stake a bet to say I think the future looks like, we've seen the larger providers in every space be disrupted by smaller providers for a long time. That's just a trend that's going to be accelerated. Lots more startups, lots more innovation, lots more skilled people that can build something bigger than they could have before with less capital and get to market faster. It's still hard to go find customers and keep them happy and scale out staff, and all that stuff really hasn't changed. But I do think the future looks a lot more favorable for a smaller team, not just us, but the other smaller teams out there and those thousands and thousands that AI will help start.
I know a lot of enterprise SaaS applications are thinking about AI, they're adding AI features, but they're also making the data within them and the features within them accessible to third-party AI applications. How is Trustgrid thinking about that?
I think there's two main approaches there. I think MCP is kind of like the lowest hanging fruit that most people are quasi-familiar with that have done some AI kind of interfacing. Exposing basically a lot of the things that customers would have done through our REST API through this MCP kind of interface is going to be a very common way I think the customers want to interface with us, whether it's through Claude or OpenAI's agent or however they want to do it. That's kind of like the universal way of doing it.
Yeah.
I think the other way is exposing kind of agents that Trustgrid manages for doing things like analyzing an issue using trust books that have kind of been curated and managed by Trustgrid. Or whether it's just exposing like an AI called a chat agent that you use to discuss Trustgrid deployments or issues with. I think those are going to be common AI interfaces that are going to be used by a lot of customers.
And there's a meta layer we can talk about too. How does an organization that delivers a SaaS product really think about the bigger picture of implementing AI, right? And in the business we're in, it's a security first business. Facebook Meta likes to say, move fast and break things. We don't get to break anything. And so first and foremost, this thing has to be available. It has to be secure. The AI has to, be used in a more deterministic fashion. That's really what we're doing with it, right? It's still writing code that is deterministic and then can be tested and produces a consistent outcome. And that's the vast majority of the work that we're doing with it today. So it's not, it's done in a very safe, very predictable manner. I think beyond that, when we look at delivering AI to the market, it is going to be this nature of the relationship with our customers and how that changes, the nature of our relationship with vendors and how that changes. But I think at the end of the day, there's probably not going to be a single part of the company that isn't affected by this.
Yeah. And I will say, one thing I've really come to grips with as we've gone down this journey is just the need for a solid AI infrastructure for running these. It's a different mindset than traditional software engineering. As far as how do you write, durable agents, what kind of frameworks are available, which ones make sense for your use case? How do you get visibility into what these agents are doing? Just because by nature, a lot of what these things are doing is not necessarily deterministic. How do you know whether it's doing the right thing or whether it's kind of going off the rails a little bit? There's a lot of new concepts involved there that have never really been used in my experience in software engineering before. So kind of getting a grip on those, figuring out the right pieces to get in place for running a production service that you're going to be on the hook for, having a high degree of quality is something I think every company should be looking into that's going to be delivering an AI focused product rather than just trying to shove something out there because they feel the pressure to do it.
Yeah. I think it's to pile on to what you said. There's an infrastructure layer, but there's also this sort of cultural layer that needs to be sort of embedded within that there is the idea that we are going to innovate through AI. We're going to share, there'd be knowledge sharing, and then of course applying all of the traditional test processes and everything to those outcomes. It's just, I think something that a lot of companies are going through. How do they do those two things in tandem? Have you all had sort of any pushback on changing the culture or changing the processes around AI?
It's been pretty enthusiastic on our side, yeah. Just because of the nature of, how our employees traditionally have done their jobs. This opens up a lot of new opportunities for them, how they can contribute, and new exciting things that they just weren't able to do before because, maybe they didn't know how to code. And now it's something where they could do something really interesting in hours.
Yeah.
So it's something that's really been embraced. I mean, I've read that that's not the case with everyone. A lot of people may view a more intimidating aspect to it where maybe they were experts before, they're not so much experts in now. I think in general, as you look at your kind of company's moat and even your own kind of personal moat of what makes you a valuable employee, that technical coding expertise or pure software expertise is shrunken rapidly.
Yeah.
So what's becoming more valuable is your knowledge in that domain and maybe even more important, what's not public knowledge in that domain. What do you know that other companies don't? And what kind of data that you have that other companies do not or is not publicly available are going to become the really valuable things going forward because the intelligence itself, that value is going to shrink more and more.
Yeah.
And that you say something quite often about the moat, which is, you could rewrite a lot of the Trustgrid software with AI for probably a lot less than it cost us to do it a lot more quickly. But you can't make the same 500 mistakes with AI that we did over 8 years that have influenced the design of the product, so many different features, so much in how we package and manage with the customers. And so the moat is moving. It's shrunk in some ways, but I think some of those core fundamentals are still there, which is experience and expertise still are valuable.
Yeah, we call that SCAR-driven expertise. That's what I like to call it. There's a lot of stuff in there that we were put in there after painful learnings.
Yeah.
And that's going to become valuable as well going forward.
Last question. If someone's watching this and they're dealing with their own fintech connectivity challenges, what's the first thing they should do? I mean, you would say call Trustgrid, but where should they be looking to unearth what the core problems are, what the next steps for them might be.
I think things are changing so quickly, right? What's the corporate strategy? What's the technical vision? Where's the company going? And how do you help, skate to where the puck is going and not where it's at right now, right? Cloud has been a big influence over the last few years, less so in fintech, but still substantially, less in community banking for sure. But what are those things out 3, 5, 7 years that are going to be must-haves? Whatever problems you're having right now probably aren't going to drive that level of solution. So if it's time to make a change, really understanding what your needs are going to be. You don't change these networks out very often. This is a long commitment, and probably more difficult now than ever to really predict where that's going to be. But take your best guess, because there's going to be a lot of innovation, a lot of change. It's a long-term commitment that you got to take very seriously.
All right. Well, thank you very much. This was a great talk. Joe, Steven, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Lance.